Okay, we're in Simon Kuf Gimel, Halacha Beis, and to introduce what I'm going to talk to you about, it's like this: the first beginning of Hilchos Taruvos tells us that if Isser is nice and time with the heter, then it's Asr, and if it's not nice and time, then it's Mutter. Okay, and it tells you how to figure out. How you figure out is there time or is there no time? Okay, that was one thing. The beginning of Simon Kuf, that was Simon Tzadi Ches. Now, at the beginning of Simon Kuf Gimel, it told us a new piece of information, and that was what happens if the Isser is nice and tam, but it's nice tam lifgam. So it said, well, then don't worry about tam kicker at that point. If it's nice tam lifgam, then you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so first we started with that if it's nice and tam, that was a bunch of simanim. Then it said, hey, but if it's nice tam lifgam, then don't worry about that kind of tam. Okay, so today we're going to talk about this an unusual case where it's not giving any tam, not positive tam. That was Simon Tzadi, although everything until now, and not that it's giving a negative tam. That was the beginning of Simon Kuf Gimel. Now we're talking about something that's giving no tam. Okay, like it's there, but it's not giving any tam. Okay, and what is that? Where does it fit in, and what goes on with that? Okay, I want to tell you some practical applications of that. Then I'm still working on it, so I don't have the practical applications. You'll see what I mean. I'm still not clear. I got it yet.
In practical is negated really to today.
To real people, yeah, to real people. So I mean, I can't say I have zero, but I'm really working on getting to the bottom of what real examples. I'm working on some different cases. Okay, so the Ramah, I told you we're doing Halacha Beis. The Ramah at the end of it says pretty clearly. He says, "Davar she'ein bo tam klal." He says, "Let bee legs." Okay, when you have honey from bees, there are legs from the bees in it also. So when you then you warm up the honey in order to filter it, so you can get those different things out that you don't want. So the shaila is, are you trafing up your kalim because those legs that are in there, those are trafe, and they come from the bee. So the honey is kosher, but you're heating it up together with the legs inside of it. So the Ramah says, no, don't worry about it. He says because the bee legs have no tam, or other davar she'ein bo tam klal. Don't worry about the kalim becoming treif from that. Okay. We also, I mentioned some time ago, the din of stam kalim in the Yerman. Taisus, there's different explanations given for what it means stam kalim. Why do we think stam kalim in the Yerman? And one of them Taisus says is that one of his saddim is he says, well, maybe we should assume that there's a possibility that the kli has no time at all. Maybe it's anybody nice and time at all, and therefore that would be a tzad to be mutter. Meaning it might be any ben yomi, and even if it's ben yomi, maybe it's a thing that was not nice and time at all. That's not nice and time at all, and that's why you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so those are all telling you that it should be mutter. So the Pri Chadash says, he says, I don't understand. He says that's what Ramah says, and this is Taisus says it also like that. He says I don't see it. He says the Beis Yosef and our Simon, the Ramah in Taras Chatas and the Shach and our Simon say bring from an Arz Arua that if an Isser is loy Lishvach loy lifgam, it does make the food treif. Okay, so what's going on here? If it's not nice and time at all, is it mutter or is it asr? So the Ramah here says that it's mutter, but everybody else, including the Ramah himself in Taras Chatas, says if it's loy l'shvach loy lifgam, doesn't affect the other food at all. Okay, that's Pri Chadash's question, and he says the question is a mistake. Okay, the question is a mistake. It's assuming that ein bo tam klal and loy lifgam loy l'shvach is the same thing. Okay, he says those are really not the same thing. Those two things are not identical. Ein bo tam klal means it has zero taste. There's no taste of the thing at all. It has no taste of the thing at all. That's what it's mutter. But loy l'shvach loy lifgam means it has tam, but the tam doesn't make any difference. You can't taste. You don't notice anything in this food from that thing that was loy l'shvach loy lifgam. It has a tam, but you just doesn't affect anything. Doesn't have anything to do with the taste of this food. There, we don't say. They would say no. Nice tam lifgam is usher in that case. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said nice tam lifgam. In that case, that food can usher the other food that is being put into. Okay. Okay, if it's ein bo tam klal, what the Ramah says was literally it has a thing with zero taste. The bee legs have zero taste to them. If it has zero taste, it doesn't affect the other food. If it has a taste, but that taste is not l'shvach and not lifgam to this food, it just doesn't. It's nothing to the food.
This particular food it doesn't affect.
Correct. To this food, it doesn't make it better or worse. It is nice and tam, but that the addition of tam that it gave meant nothing to this food.
So what does that mean? That means that nobody could taste any difference in this food because this particular food, whatever, has certain properties or taste
I don't
made
think
no difference to this food, or it means it gave a taste to this food. It just didn't make it worse. Did it make it better? It just,
correct. The second one, the latter, doesn't make it better or worse. Siman Tzadi Ches is when it makes it better. Siman Kuf Gimel, the beginning, no Tzadi makes it worse. And what happens if it doesn't make it better or doesn't make it worse? That's on the side of the same as if it's making it better. Okay, and there's two. Before I tell you right to it, this, if you remember, we talked about the Rajba and the Ran, how they understand or Nesam Kam is mutter. This fits in better with the Rajba than with the Ran. The Rajba said that Nesam Lifgam, since it makes a negative taste to the food, that doesn't count as a tam. So it's only if it's negative. But if it's neutral, like we're saying here, or if it's positive, then it would be aser. The Ran didn't sound so much like that. The Ran made it sound like you only aser tam. You only aser tam when you get a benefit from it. So it's the positiveness that makes it aser. But if you don't get anything benefit from it, then it doesn't aser it. In which case you would think neutral should be mutter. Neutral not. Okay, so it fits better with the Raj than with the Ran. Okay, so there's two, like I don't say rayas to say like that. One is the Ramah in Siman Kuf Lamed Daled. It's in Hilchas Stam Yain. He says, what happens if you have treif wine? They got mixed into another food. He has 3 cases of that wine. He says either it could be the wine is Lishvach, the wine is not lifgam, or the wine is lifgam. Okay, three situations. It's Lishvach, it's not lifgam, or it's lifgam. Okay, and he says the first 2 are aser, the wine asers it, and the third one, the wine does not aser it. So listen to what he said. He said it's Lishvach, good, we understand why that's aser. It's lifgam, that's why and then his middle case was it's not lifgam. Okay, so that's what this Pri Chadash is saying is that it's something that's it's not that it doesn't give tam, it just doesn't make it lifgam, doesn't make lishvach either. There were the 3. There was a shvach and lifgam, and there's this middle of not lifgam. It's like sort of floating there. It's like there's nothing to it. That was the case that he says. Now the other thing is, the other right is the shach says the way I know that I'm right, that when it's lo lishvach lo lifgam is aser. He said it from Arzarua. He says, I have a right to you from Yerushalmi. Okay, the Yerushalmi says, it says a case, and then it says, Amra, from this case you could see, Hadar Amra, loy l'shvach loy l'fgam aser. That phrase comes from, it's a Yerushalmi. Hadar Amra, from the case that I just told you, you could see that loy l'shvach loy l'fgam aser. So he says, okay, what was the case that the Yerushalmi brought its right from? He says, Hadar Amra, from this I could see that this and this tree. He says, what was the case that he saw that from? Hold on, I got to fix something here, I'm sorry. Now you're looking to put someone else's there. Okay. He says, what's the case? What's the case that the Yerushalmi said that Hadar Amra? The case was that you have olives made from truma, olives that are truma that became kavush in olives that were chulin. Okay. He says, so just like the case of the Ramah, like the case of the Ramah I told you a second ago, wine and olives both are nice. They have tam to them. Olives taste like something and wine tastes like something. Yet the Yerushalmi can say Hadar Amra. You can see from this case olives of truma that go into olives of chulin are aser. Hadar Amra, that if it's loy l'shraf l'fgam, it could be aser. Even though it of course it has tam. Olives have tam, and the Ramah's case of wine for sure has tam. You see that it's something.
Why is it loy l'shraf l'fgam? Because it's min b'mina.
So he doesn't focus. I'm going to tell you in a second. Ramosha talks about it being min b'mina, but it has no effect on the food. Okay, the wine case, I don't think the Ramah says it's going into min b'mina, but the case of the olives is olives into olives. Yeah, it's olives. So it had to make but the point is, it's not that the olives have no taste. What the Pri Chadash is telling us, there's a case with the Ramah of the bee legs is they have no taste. Olives don't have no taste. Just in this situation, they didn't have a taste. And in this situation, it doesn't affect taste. Okay, now just a couple things. One is, I don't know if you want to call this history, and that is, I just told you that the Shach says I have a right to the Erzerua from Yerushalmi. Okay, now this is we'll call it history. Okay, the Sefer Erzerua was written hundreds of years ago, but it wasn't printed. It wasn't widely available in most people till the 1800s and 1900s. Okay, it wasn't that it became actually available to most people, and most people know anything that they know from the Erzerua is from the Talmidim of the Erzerua. His son, the Marach Erzerua, wrote like a kitzer of the Sefer Erzerua. It's called Marach Erzerua. Piskei Erzerua was the same thing. That's where people get things from. There's in Hagoy Sashri, the Shari Dura. People bring the Erzerua saying things, and the Shach, in fact, everyone over here brings it. This Erzerua is from Shari Dura in this place, where the Hagoy Sashri brought it in like that. Okay, but now the Shach very likely did not have the full Sefer Aruch. I'm telling you, it wasn't very available at all till maybe 100, 200 years ago. But now that we actually have the Aruch, if you open up the Aruch, he brings it right from this exact same Yerushalmi. So the Shach says, I have a raya to the Aruch from Yerushalmi. Yeah, the Aruch himself actually brought that exact same raya. This had the Amra from, but the Shach probably didn't have the Aruch. He brought it. He says, he's seen the Shari Dura, he brings the Aruch. So anyhow. Okay, now there's another thing, and that is the Shach says, I have another raya to my din. That loy lishvach loy lifgam is also, he says, because the din is the Gemara says we're pasking like the Man Yomer that says ein begidim inois and tam. But even so, if a gid anoshe gets mixed into foods in the right situation, you need shishim to be mvatalid. He says, why do you need shishim? Ein begidim inois and tam. If ein begidim inois and tam, how come you need shishim to be mvatalid? He says, so it must be. So it must be that if loy lishvach loy lifgam is aser. It needs to be batal b'shishim. So now that sounds like not like what I've been telling you, not like this pre-chodesh, because he's saying is the Gemara says ein begidim inois and tam. He says yet, but if a gid falls into something, you need shishim. So the Shach says that's a raya that lo l'shrach lo l'fgam is lo l'shrach lo l'fgam is aser. Doesn't sound like the pre-chodesh. So a bunch of the Acharonim speak about this. Pri Megadim and the Chavos Das say like this. They say when the Gemara says ein begidim inois and tam, it's a machlokes in the Gemara whether yesh begidim inois and tam or not. We pass in ein begidim inois and tam. He says that doesn't mean there's zero tam to a gid. The Chavos Das says if there was zero tam to a gid, zero, how could there be a machlokes whether yesh begidim inois and tam or not? What could be the machlokes about it? He says obviously there's a small amount of tam to a gid. And it's a small amount of time. It's a machlokes. Does that count or that doesn't count? So we say yesh begidim this time or not. I mean, there's this amount of time to it. Is that enough to count or not enough to count? He says so. When the Shach said when we say ein begidim inois and tam, really there's a bit of time. There actually is some time to it. So when the Shach says if it's loy l'shvach loy l'fgam, get anosha as an example of that is because things with a little of time are also loy l'shvach loy l'fgam. Okay, so it's not against this pre-chodesh, but it's a little bit limiting the pre-chodesh. I mean, when we say this, ein boy tam klal has to be literally ein boy tam klal, but if it had a little bit of time, like in a good anasha, that would be still.
What isn't it the purpose of ein begidim inois and tam to say that doesn't answer? Isn't that the whole point of the Gemara?
Right, and in some cases yes, in some cases not. But we're not into that's in Simon. I forgot what Simon that is. So whatever Simon that's in. But there is a case where it asks where you need shishim. So the Shach says you see that even if it's lo yishvav lo l'fgam, it's going to make it also anyhow. Okay, now Ramosha says a variation of what the pre-chodesh says. He says this chumrah that lo l'shvach lo l'fgam is aser. I mean, the Ramos said sounded like he's saying mutter. The other people saying that it's aser. He says that's only in cases of what you said of min b'minoi. He says by min b'minoi, it's almost automatic that by a case of min b'minoi, it's not going to affect the other food. Because, like the case in the Yerushalmi, olives and olives are not going to affect basically not going to affect the taste of each other because it's min b'mina. He says it's automatically. So this idea that loy l'shvach loy l'fgam is aser, which Ramesh says means only by min b'mina. He says it's a variation of the rule of the gzeir of min b'mina and atu min b'she'ena mina. Meaning midaraisa min b'mina is bata b'roiv because it's not nice and tam. Midrabanan, it needs shishim because you could confuse it with min b'she'ena mina. So Ramesh said, so basically, lo l'shrach lo l'fgam is a variation of this rule that min b'mina needs shishim. It's a way of saying is, if it's not nois and tam, you could confuse it with things that are nois and tam. So Chazal said, therefore, no, you need to have shishim connected it, even though we know it's not nois and tam.
So, and he's saying the opposite. He's saying it really doesn't answer. Really, minadin, me'ikar adin, it would not answer.
Correct. Midarais, it would not answer. Right? It really should not answer. The fact that we say that it's usher, it's not nois and tam. You mean it's the opposite? The pre-chodesh understanding is like Mom says it's usher min hadin, so to speak.
Yeah.
And he's saying it's only usher because of zera min b'mina to mishen mina. Okay, I don't know if the pre-chodesh says is that why couldn't the pre-chodesh is it usher? Why did Chazal answer this thing that's not, why is it usher the thing that's not nois and tam? So okay, you could read the pre-chodesh saying that he's saying it's minadin it's also. Ramesh saying it's not, so to speak, not minadin. It's just a chumrah. It's just a chumrah of atu mimbish einimina. So atu mimbish einimina sort of. Yeah. And he says I have a right to what I'm saying. He says I told you the Yerushalmi says hada amra lo l'shrayach lo l'fgam is aser. And the case of what was the Hada Amra, what was the raya from? The case of olives and olives. So what's the raya? Well, I'm sorry, what's the if it works even by min b'she'enu, how could the Yerushalmi bring a raya from a case of min b'minoi? Min b'minoi we know has this strictness that it's usher even though it's not based in tam. So how could the Yerushalmi say from the case of min b'minoi of olives and olives that's hada amra that even that there's this rule that things are always usher. Lifgam lo lifgam is usher. If that rule is even by min b'she'enu, how can you bring a raya from a case of min b'minoi? We know there's a chumrah by min b'minoi. Obviously, the Gemara didn't mean it by even by min b'she'enu. Yerushalmi meant it only by case of min b'minoi. And so here's a case of olives is exactly what we want. Okay. Now, so we came out with this understanding that if something has zero taste at all, especially in the case of min b'she'enu minoi, it's not going to ask other food. Okay, and a lot of the Achronim bring this and they're masking that's the truth. Okay, that in a case where it literally has no time at all, I'm not telling you all the names. If it's zero time at all, then the food is going to be mutter, especially if it's min b'she'enu minoi. Okay, now how do we know which foods have no time at all? Okay, so it sounds like a silly question, right? Take a bite, and then you'll decide if the food has taste or doesn't have any taste to it. Okay, so I'm gonna speculate on something a little more detailed than what that is. Okay, what I'm telling you that I'm speculating. Okay, and that's like this. The two of us spoke about this once, and that's like this. If you go to I don't know what the name of the scientist is who thinks about taste, he'll tell you there's three parts to what you taste in a food. Okay, there's the main thing is the aroma, what you smell. You can perceive that aroma by literally through your nose when you smell as you're about to eat the food, or when you bite into the food, the vapors of that go through the back of your throat back up to your nose, and that has a different name to it. That's called a retronasal. And then you have an aroma also. That science believes that's the main part of what you consider the taste of food is from the aroma of it. The other part, the second part, is what we more traditionally call taste. That is these 4 or maybe 5 things that you taste in your tongue. They are sweet, sour, salty, and bitter, and they have this other thing that may be umami. Maybe that also counts like a savory kind of a taste. Those things you taste not through aroma. The sweetness you don't taste it through by smelling it. The sweetness is on your tongue, sweet and sour, and those other ones like that. Okay, those are the 2 main parts of flavor of what we call how something has a flavor to it. And the last is a mouthfeel. Okay, and mouthfeel is like if it's chewy or rough or smooth and things like that. They have also a fancy name that's called trigeminal. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Sensations. Okay, and that you feel from your nerves in your mouth, your pain nerves that you feel in your mouth. Okay. So, example, you bite into an apple. Okay, the apple tastes sweet. That's your tasting on your tongue. Okay, the apple has an aroma that you're smelling with your nose or through the back of your throat into your nose. And the apple is also crunchy. Okay, and when you put all those pieces together, you say, "Oh, that was an apple." Okay, you put all those pieces together in your head, and those 3 parts together is what makes a tam. Okay, so the first thing is, if we want to say that something has a tam or has no tam, the word tam, we can't use the word, we wouldn't say is taste anymore, because taste is what we call in English, we say what you put on your tongue. So we'd say, okay, it's your taste and your aroma. We call that together, those are the flavor of the thing. Okay, the question is, what about mouthfeel? Okay, is mouthfeel included in tam or it's not included in tam? We want to say something has no tam. How does mouthfeel fit into that? Okay, so I'm going to use alcohol as an example. Okay, when you drink whiskey, okay, alcohol, okay, there's 3 parts to the taste. Okay, one is it has a bitter and sometimes a sweet taste to it. That's one part that you taste on your tongue. It has an aroma, and that's you smell. Okay, but the I don't know if the strongest, but the easiest way to identify the alcohol is because it has a pungent, a burning taste to it, a taste that you have when you drink alcohol. Okay, it has a strong burning sensation. Okay, that's mouthfeel. That's not aroma, and that's not taste. That's completely mouthfeel. And you, of course, that's a big part of what alcohol tastes like. When you say, I drank the alcohol, I tasted the alcohol. Okay, this whiskey, this bourbon, it's that the burning sensation is a big part of what you just tasted. Okay, so we can't say that mouthfeel doesn't count at all. Okay, on the other hand, there's other parts of mouthfeel that of course, are not part of taste. Like, for example, you can make spaghetti soft or hard. Okay, some people al dente or all soft spaghetti. Okay, nothing to do with the aroma of the spaghetti or the taste of the spaghetti. Doesn't change anything. It just tastes the mouthfeel. Okay, or you can make a thick salsa or a watery salsa. Okay, the ingredients and the taste and the aroma are all the same.
What's temperature? Like people want a cold drink, like
mouthfeel. That's a mouthfeel thing. If my soda is cold or
coffee is like, I imagine it tastes the same, but it's like, people want hot coffee.
Right. So the answer is yes. That's mouthfeel. Sometimes when some things are warmer, you get more aroma out of them. So it has a little play into the aroma part of it also. But the ikka part of it is a mouthfeel issue. Again, if I have a warm Coke or a cold Coke, the difference is completely mouthfeel, isn't it?
But it's also part of it going. It's like also whiskey. Also, part of it is like the after warmth. I don't know what it generates in your body. You feel like a
yes. So that's all mouthfeel.
And drinking. It's not in your mouth. It's
okay. Yes. Okay. Go what you want to. Okay. Call what you want to. But that's not your aroma. It's not because it smells good.
It's not mouthfeel either. It's like,
okay. So I want to break it up like this. Mouthfeel to the following two parts. There are parts of the parts of mouthfeel that you could tell any place in your body. Okay, if I stuck my finger into the cold drink or into the hot drink, I would notice that also. Okay, the parts that I could taste, that I can detect any part of my body, that doesn't have that. We don't call that tam. Okay, those parts of whether something is crunchy has nothing to do with my mouth per se. I happen to have bitten into my mouth. Like if I break it with my hand, or if I touch the spaghetti, the hardness or the softness, those parts of mouthfeel, of this closest thing that we call mouthfeel, those I don't think are included in tam. The only parts of tam are the ones that you only notice because it's in your mouth. Okay, like the alcohol that you drink, if you stuck your finger into the alcohol, you don't have that burning sensation. Okay, you don't feel that. It doesn't have any shaykhs. There's nothing to do with that. So that does count as tam. Okay, but the parts of it that are not connected to eating, so to speak, that are just your body. Literally, the whole thing is from your nerves, how you feel something. But some of that you can feel in your mouth, and some of it, if you stick your toes into alcohol, nothing happens. You don't feel anything when you stick your toes into it. Okay, but other parts of it you can feel. Okay, there's a different way to say it. Less accurate, but maybe easier to use the words. Is that the parts of mouthfeel that are caused by chemicals? Okay, like when you have, I wrote something down. When you have mint, okay, mint has a certain effect on you. When you smell mint, okay, when you eat mint, that's caused by a chemical called menthol. We eat horseradish. Okay, it has this burning sensation when you eat horseradish. It comes from a chemical called allyl isothiocyanate. Okay, so there's a chemical thing that causes that, and then I have a whole pile of other examples of that. Okay, a pile of examples of that a chemical causes you to feel this thing. That I think counts as tam, as opposed to when something is
a chemical. It's in the food, right?
A chemical in the food, part of the food that causes that causes that, as opposed to whether something is dry or rough or smooth or crunchy. That's not a chemical part of the food. It has to just do the way the food is made up or how you cooked it or whatever it was. Okay, so
let's say somebody has a cold drink, right? Schmack, wow, it's a cold drink. There's no tam, right? Water has no tam. I don't think we say water has tam.
Correct.
But it's very geschmack. It's cold.
Right. So tam only counts for the things that are. So what you're saying is everything.
Because I can feel with my finger that it's cold. I know, but
right.
But it doesn't help me. I tell the guy, you know what? You can't drink this water. I know you're very thirsty and everything, but
no.
Stick your finger in it.
No.
It's a different feeling.
I'm not saying that there's nothing else besides what you feel in your mouth. The point is, which one is the tam of the food? Okay. What I mean is, you could cool yourself off in other ways, or you could feel the coldness of this thing in other ways also. So that's not the tam of the food because it's cold. If let me say it a different way. If you thought that being cold is considered tam, then there's nothing that's in by tam klal. What do you mean? Everything has a mouth feel. Even water has a feel when it's slippery. It's whatever, it has something. We can describe what we're doing. The point is, but that what you're feeling is not a tam. That's not a tam thing. A tam thing has to be something that is unique to the fact that you're eating the food. Okay, so what the taste and the smell is of course unique to eating it. You don't taste anything with your ears. Okay, but also the mouth feel. I'm saying this in science we wrap them all together. All these mouth feels because they just use that just as a shame clothing. I'm saying there's really two parts. There's a tactile part of it. There's like a touching part of it. That's tactile. You touch it and you feel it. That I don't think is tam. and then there's the more chemically based, or the things that are special because it's in your mouth. Those I think are counted as tam. Okay, now at this point I should tell you the applications of it. Okay, and unfortunately I'm not all the way there on this. Okay, so one is like this. The Rama says that bee legs don't have tam. It also comes from a Taisus. Okay, how did the Rama know that bee legs don't have a tam? Okay, where did that come from? That this idea that he never tasted them. Bee legs are not kosher.
Why do I have in my head that bee legs are mutter stam?
No, you're not mutter to eat them per se. That would be this a drop.
I think they are.
Well, you only know of it because of this dinner. It's in some Tzadi Dalad also maybe.
It's mutter. It's not because no tam. It's just got nothing.
It's because it's aim by tam klal. It's like bones. It's Rama compares it to bones and he says it has no tam.
But that even makes it mutter. Not that it's all these things. No tam means that it is you got the mashmach the iser, and then there's the rest is mutter. So you don't need bitul b'shish. The rest is mutter, but you can't eat the thing itself. But the bee legs, you need the bee leg itself.
I don't remember. Okay, maybe you're right. I don't remember it like that. The Rama over here doesn't say it like that. And Ramosha says another case. He says shalak. Ramosha has reasons to think that shalak is mutter. Reasons that are not relevant to today. He says, but even if it's not mutter, even if the shalak is not mutter, it has no tam at all, and therefore it's batal b'roiv, which has to do with the way they use it. So it's always mutter because it's going to be batal b'roiv in the case. Okay, so I don't know what Ramosha did to decide that it was aim by tam klal. Rabbi Price, I was talking to him about it. He says to me, "Well, I know it's aim by tam." He says because they put it onto your food and you don't taste it, right? You put on you eat apples that have shellac on them and you don't taste it. You don't think it's any different because of that. I'm not sure if that's correct or if it's just because they put so little that maybe you don't notice it. I'm not sure, but that's what he thought like that. Now, then I was trying to find other foods, other things that are aim by tam klal. This is where I'm still working on it. On the internet, it says that shark fin, which is used for making soup in the Far East, has no tam to it. It just makes it chewy. People like to chew. They like that thing that's in there because the shark fin gives a chewiness to their food. Now, I obviously have no way to find out to taste shark fins. You remember we did one to taste test on a bunch of different foods. I had a bunch of foods that the internet also thought had no tam to them, but was not true. I mean, we did a bunch of them: rice and sushi rice and spinach and chia seeds, a bunch of things like that. The one that some people thought didn't have tam was tofu. Maybe I'm not convinced on that. And then Rabbi Price told me a different thing, and this actually has practical applications. He told me I should try it. I haven't gotten around to trying it yet. He said magnesium stearate he thinks has no tam to it. He said he's tasted. Maybe we could taste the kosher one. He tasted it and he thinks it has no tam to it at all. So it's and then okay, I'm sorry, I forgot about that. That's one of them. There's another big one that OU did a test years ago. I can't say I was thrilled with the way they did the test. I only read about it afterwards to say that maybe gelatin has no tam. Okay, and the beef gelatin seemed to have less tam than the fish gelatin. It was the test had wasn't so. I was so thrilled how it was done. And it was whether we could be conclusive from the way it was what they proved. But if it would be true that it really has no tam to it, it just makes things thicker, but it doesn't give. So it's a mouth. It creates mouthfeel. That's why they put it in mouthfeel. Well, the magnesium stearate is because it helps things slide better through equipment. But it's not. It doesn't give any tam. It gives mouthfeel. Okay, the gelatin makes it thicker, but it doesn't taste like anything. That would be a big nafkamina for us because it would mean is that if you ran gelatin, if gelatin was in a product and it was on kalim, even if it wasn't batal b'shishim, you wouldn't have to kash the kalim then, but like the bee legs, if it was really aimed by tam klal. So that's why I want to get to the bottom of it, of which of these things really are aimed by tam klal, because it has this nafkamina. The Ramah tells us that it has this nafkamina. We don't have to kash the kalim because of it. So that's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of it.
Even if it was in some, right? If it was in something and it wasn't maimed.
No, if it was maimed, also we wouldn't care about it because it's not. I mean, it doesn't affect kalim.
I don't know about the kalim.
I mean, the thing itself.
Let's say it was in something and it wasn't maimed.
Okay.
Whatever reason.
Like the magnesium stearate.
I don't know.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So in that, it's not batal b'shishim. It's something mutter.
So then we'd say aim by tam klal would be mutter, right? You'd be allowed to eat it. Now, usually the gelatin we think of it as being a maimed. Yeah, so we say so that we're not allowed to eat the thing anyhow. But we care about the kalim. But you're saying, yeah, it could happen that it would be a situation like, yeah. So that's why I'm trying to get to the bottom of some real cases to try to get. Maybe I have to get some kosher gelatin and take a bite out of it, or see what it's like. Because gelatin we could taste. We could taste kosher gelatin. There was a question about palmitic acid. That seemed like maybe it did have a tam. anyhow, we've been back and forth. I'm trying to get to the bottom, and I heard this is true from someone. I'm not telling you who yet because I haven't heard if it's real, specifically about gelatin maybe having a time or not. Anyhow, so one day I will get to the bottom of this, and make some sense of it.